Hello, hello. My name is Jordan.
And I'm Jared.
And we are JJ Cruise coming at you with our first ever podcast.
That's right. This is the Cruise Diaries.
What is the Cruise Diaries, Jared?
You know, the Cruise Diaries is taking a blast from the past, a throwback, if you will, into all of our past cruises.
We've been on 53 cruises so far. Can you believe that?
I cannot believe that.
I know.
I don't know if that's, that should be a badge of honor.
It really should be. 53 cruises. I do think we can officially call ourselves veteran cruisers.
Yes.
Maybe.
Oh, we have to. I mean, I know that the timing is very recent, you know, within the last, 3, 4, 5 years. So it's hard to be called a veteran. We're not tenured, for example. But at the same time, we have the veteran experience.
We've done a lot of cruises, a lot of ships. So what we're going to do on this podcast is we are going to take you back to the very first ever cruise that Jared and I did together. And every episode is going to be about that cruise that we took. We're going to dive into some of the memories, the things that we thought. We're going to share some stories that we definitely cannot share on the tube.
Yes, the stories. I mean, if you've never cruised with us before, we like to have a good time, but we also witness a lot that is just maybe a little too risque for the YouTube. And so we're going to tell it all here. We're going to definitely share the good, the bad, and obviously the wild and crazy times from our stories at sea.
Yeah, I'm so excited about this. I mean, this is like a reach for both of us because we really have to go back into our the depths of our minds to remember certain things about the experience. However, what I love about this is as we kind of started to talk about planning this podcast, there was a lot that we had forgotten that we are rediscovering or remembering happened that we have never told anyone about.
Oh, in all honesty, this journey will be a memory lane for all of us. It will be something that we have to actually might even recall things while talking about it on this podcast. So let's get started. What was our first ever cruise that we did together? Not your first cruise ever. You did some with family, but what was our first cruise ever together?
So our first ever cruise together was on the Carnival Conquest. So this took place on August 17th in the year of our Lord 2017.
Oh my gosh, has it been that long?
Yes, it's been that long. And this was a 4-night Bahamas cruise. We left on a Thursday, the 17th, and then got back on the 21st. The itinerary included one sea day, one day at Half Moon Cay, which is Carnival Corporation's private island in the Bahamas, and then one day in Nassau. Now, even though I had actually cruised before, this was my first time actually in the Bahamas because both of my other cruises that I took before I ever met Jared went to Mexico. So I had been to Mexico many times. Jared and I have been to Mexico together many times. But I guess that was the very first time that we actually ever stopped in Nassau, Bahamas.
Oh, and I was stoked. Let me tell you, I was a little bit hesitant of the cruising scene. I loved all-inclusives, but I was really kind of like excited for the Bahamas. And okay, this is my guilty, not even pleasure, just something that I liked to do was reality TV shows. I loved watching reality TV shows, and
loved or love? I think I think you can still say you love watching reality TV.
I do currently love watching reality TV, even while at sea. But one of the reality TV shows that I had watched at the time was Keeping Up with the Kardashians, and the Kardashians went to the Bahamas. And for some reason, when the Kardashians go somewhere, I immediately think it is the best place on earth because they're the Kardashians. They could go anywhere.
Kim, she is the influencer. Yeah, I mean, let's set the scene though here. We had been on vacation together. Actually, traveling was something that Jared and I decided was going to be a priority for us once we met. It was something we both loved. We shared an interest for seeing the world and traveling. And so we actually, I don't know, it was probably like a year after we had met, decided that we were going to take a trip every month. And even if that was just like a small trip, like a little road trip up to Wisconsin, we lived in Chicago at the time, we were going to do a trip every month. Well, I really wanted to take Jared on a cruise because I had been on cruises with my family. I loved them. And so I did something that I don't recommend. And actually, I would never recommend this to anyone. I bought a cruise off of Groupon.
I mean, I will say that I love Groupon, but a cruise may not be the thing you buy off of Groupon. That is like the thing, like go out to eat with a Groupon, go do an activity you've never done before, half price. But a cruise half price, that's telling something. I'm just saying. That is saying something.
I think it was more than half price. I think it was like 30%. We only paid maybe $400 for this cruise.
It was a good deal. We thought it was a good deal.
We thought it was a good deal. It was for an inside cabin. And this is something now that I always talk to people about because I learned my lesson on this cruise. I did not prepare Jared properly for one, what a cruise is, and two, for how small the cabin would be.
Oh, that was all you talked about was the size of the cabin. It was the rest of the cruise that I was not well prepared for. In fact, I will say this right now. Every single person that has never cruised before, we will talk about the size of the cabin, and always that will be the one thing that I feel like people in general know about cruises. They expect it to be so small, and that's a good expectation to have. So that's all I cared about. I was like, oh, the cabin, it's going to be so small. So when we walk into our inside cabin on this cruise, it was not as small as I expected. And I was like, we're on a good start. Like if I'm going the first day into this inside cabin and this is supposed to be the worst it gets, then we might be okay.
Oh, I think you're being a little generous with your recollection here. I remember you thinking it was pretty tiny, but I think we're getting ahead of ourselves. Let's just step back for a second. With your first cruise, what was the first thing that you thought when you got on board? So you thought that the room was a little bit bigger than what you imagined. What about the rest of the ship? Do you remember thinking like, oh, it's old, it's gross? Because the Carnival Conquest at the time was not a new ship.
Yeah, no, I mean, and remember, I am used to all-inclusive vacations, going to a resort, and this ship wasn't it. For me, I remembered this ship as being very old. And at the time, if I remember right, this was like an early 2000s kind of ship. So it's had some time. I feel like 15 years probably around of age to it. And it showed. This ship was definitely, in my mind, decrepit compared to the all-inclusives I've gone to. And although we went to our room and the size of the room wasn't as shocking as I thought it would be, the rest of the ship was not something I prepared for.
Yeah, I mean, he was expecting a Four Seasons and he got the Carnival Conquest. But for $400, come on. I mean, you do get what you paid for. I do remember the entire time being so nervous because Jared and I had been together for 2 years at this point, and I was just like, oh, I want him to like cruising as much as I do. And I was pretty consistently disappointed throughout the trip. One thing that sticks out about this trip that I remember is the unfortunate food poisoning that happened to both of us. And that was actually on day 2 of the cruise. So this was our C day.
Yeah. So just to walk through this here, when we're going on this cruise, there's a lot that is a first for me. I'm trying everything for the first time. Loved Guy's Burger Joint. The fact that there is a Guy's restaurant on the ship was just so cool to me. That was like one of the only things when walking on that I was impressed by. I was like, oh, we have a name brand restaurant at sea. And then we had a burger right away, fries, the whole toppings bar. I had the pig patty. I had to get a bacon patty on top of a regular patty, if you're not familiar. And it was delicious. We both enjoyed it. We've had so many different types of cuisines on that cruise as well. But on that second day, it didn't sit well for us overnight.
Well, okay. I don't know if it was the burger or it was the rabbit, because at dinner we had rabbit. So if you haven't cruised Carnival before, they have a section of the menu. It's just like a little box that's like wild eats or strange eats. And there will be barbecued boar or rabbit or like these just different things. And at dinner that night, I remember that was the first time I had ever had rabbit. And I think it was the first time you had ever had escargot.
Yeah, I had escargot. I mean, if you're not familiar, escargot is on a lot of cruise menus. That is like a thing that when you go cruising, you can really enjoy some different eats. And escargot, that was my first time having it, and it was delicious. It's one thing I loved about the cruise was trying new things. I love trying new eats, and the rabbit was delicious. Like, let me get you straight here. My recollection is the food was all good. It wasn't that the food was bad, but something we ate, and we don't know what it was to this day because we had, to be honest, so much to eat that day that we got so sick. And you got sick in the middle of the night, right?
Yeah. So Jared had gotten sick. It was later in the evening. He got sick, and then he was out and in bed. And then I got sick in the middle of the night. And thankfully, when we woke up that next day, we were both seemingly okay. But boy, that was a rough night. And it could have also been the drinks, because we did both get the drink package. But I remember that the drink package was also something that Jared was really disappointed in.
Okay, yes, the drink package. Okay, here's the thing. When you go to an all-inclusive, you have all drinks included. If you're going to a good all-inclusive, I'm sure there's some out there that limit you. But all the ones I had been to, you do not have a limit. Now, we all know all-inclusives, they have the bad rap of watering down their drinks, or it's not as strong. It's not the actual alcohol you think it is. Not going to get into that. That is not what we're here to discuss. The fact that you can have as many drinks as you want is what I was expecting. To get on this ship and be told that I have only up to 15 drinks a day, that felt like a limit automatically. And it felt like there was a reason for it, but I didn't know what. I think we're going to talk about that a little later in this podcast, why that was there and why we found that out. But yeah, that was just different for me. And you have to go on your first Carnival cruise with a drink package. I think that's a necessary thing you have to do.
Yes, I was not about to take Jared on a cruise without a drink package. It's so funny, though, because now that we've done so many cruises and we're a little bit older, 15 drinks feels like a lot. But for some reason, back then on the first cruise, it was almost like, I don't know, it felt like a challenge. It was like, okay, I paid for this drink package. I better drink my 15 drinks in one day.
Also, I don't recall us actually drinking 15 drinks every day. I think we tried one day to do it just to see, and we realized that it was a reasonable amount, that it was not something that was, untested already. But getting that food poisoning sickness, maybe mixed with a little drinks, but I still think it was just food poisoning, was not something that made to a good start to day 3.
No, it definitely did not. The following morning, when we woke up, we were going to Half Moon Cay, and we actually had planned an excursion that day. And you have to admit, Jared, that the excursion was great.
Oh, I loved that excursion. To be honest, that was the thing that I wasn't really knowing much about was excursions, because all-inclusives, even though they offer them, we never partook in one. We always stayed at the resort, did anything at the resort. So the most we would do is like water sports from the beach. We wouldn't go, far out and away from the resort. So that was one thing that I had no clue about.
But this excursion was swimming with the stingrays. And that was something that was really new to both of us and something I hadn't even really thought about. But when we were looking at the list of excursions, we both kind of agreed, you know what, this would actually be kind of cool, kind of unique. And it was really, really fun. There was probably about 30 people on the excursion. I do believe they still have this excursion at Half Moon Cay. You get to swim with the stingrays, snorkel with them, feed them, and even let them feed on you.
It was a very interesting experience because this was after Steve Irwin's incident. And so it was a little scary as well. In fact, that was the first question from like half of the people there was just, is this safe? Am I going to get like barbed in the chest and die on the spot? This was one of those things that it shouldn't be that scary. And just to reiterate, very safe. I don't remember what they said. I don't know if they didn't have their barbs on them or what. They didn't have their barbs, but it was just one of those things that, it shouldn't have been scary, but it was a little scary, which added to a little bit more of like, I don't know, heightened experience.
Yeah, but it was a good time. And I remember right after that, we went over to the beach. The beaches are beautiful at Half Moon Cay. And we swam, we took some pictures. Actually, I have those pictures on my phone, so maybe we'll have to throw one up on our Instagram stories for those listening. Just a little throwback to that very first cruise. But then day 3 was Nassau, and we didn't actually have a planned excursion. We just got off of the ship and we walked to the John Walting's Rum Distillery. We're both rum drinkers, and I'm sure if you've watched our YouTube channel, you're well aware of that.
Oh, you better be well aware of that, because we love our rum. And I will say, this is one of those first experiences out in the Bahamas on our own. We definitely viewed it kind of like a resort city, right? We felt like it was one of those things that we can walk on our own, be good on our own. And we quickly started realizing, as we were walking outside of the main city of Nassau to get to this rum distillery, that we might be walking into parts that were way more local than we expected.
Local is a good word for, I think, what we experienced, because we were walking past a lot of huts, and I think that Nassau gets this rap for being really unsafe. And really, when you're traveling, it's important that you are very aware of your surroundings no matter where you go.
Of course, but it's more the fact that we were expecting resort city and very much that. And then we started walking, and it was very much more local community houses that we were kind of just like, okay, is this the right direction? Like, are we being led to some actual not real rum distillery? Like, is this someone's home?
I do remember thinking that maybe the distillery was out of business or wasn't there, but we did eventually find it. It was a hot walk, but we found it. At the time, they were doing free 20-minute tours. So we got a little tour. We did a tasting of rum, and then we made it back to the ship. So nothing huge for our very first day ever in Nassau. But what I'm so excited to be talking about on this podcast today is the people that we encountered on the Carnival Conquest, because we encountered some really interesting people, as you do on cruise ships. Our hangout spot on the cruise ship was definitely the Alchemy Bar.
Yes, the Alchemy Bar was, and to be honest, I had to recollect this knowledge from a future cruise that was same design, similar ship type, because I remembered the spot on the ship, but I didn't remember the name, because it was my first cruise. You don't remember the names of bars at an all-inclusive. You just go. It's just a bar here, a bar there. You just go to the bars. But on cruise ships, very different. And at the Alchemy Bar, we had so many run-ins with so many different people there, and on the pool deck, there was a bar there as well. And I'm trying to remember which bar it was. I'm sure it was one of the popular ones on Carnival ships.
Yeah, it was probably the Red Frog Bar.
I think it was Red Frog.
That's if I'm remembering right. But remember that lady that you met?
Yes. All right. So I will always remember this, because I am someone, if you don't know me, I am a Latino. I am someone who has some melanin to my skin. And especially in the summertime, when I get some good sun, I become quite dark. And this woman came up to me. I know this is already a start to a story that people are like, where is this going? This woman came up to me, and I could tell, was very nervous. Remember, very much before JJ Cruise ever existed. So, first cruise ever, don't know anyone, no one knows us.
Well, she was coming up to the most handsome Latino man on the ship. I would be nervous if I was talking to you.
Oh my gosh. And anyways, she comes up to me and she's like, excuse me, I'm so sorry, but I have to ask you this, because you're the only person I feel comfortable asking this to. And I'm like, where is this going? What is so special about me? Is there something that I don't know? She's like, I'm sunburnt and I don't know what to do. This was a black woman who felt comfortable coming to the only person at that bar of color as well, and asking what to do, because she feels like all of the other people wouldn't understand and would make fun of her for being burnt. And I, of course, helped her out. We gave her some aloe vera. I told her, it's going to hurt, but it's going to be one of those things that you just got to keep, moisturizing with aloe vera constantly. And she's like, I'm so confused. I never get burnt, but we are like so close to the sun here. I don't understand. It was one of the funniest, but at the same time, most heartwarming things to hear someone come to me and choose me to tell their very dark secret that they didn't even, well, no one could actually tell. Everyone was just like, I don't know what's wrong with her, why she's talking to this person, but I was happy to help.
The Caribbean sun is real. The Caribbean sun, it will get you if you don't put on your sunscreen. And that is like the moral of that story. There was another group of people on board, though, that, oh boy, I don't even really know where I want to start with this group of people, but we met them at the Alchemy Bar. And they were a group of probably 15 to 20 friends that had cruised together before. Actually, I think they all met on a cruise ship.
And there was definitely other people that joined that group. Like, I'm sure 15 of them were friends before, but that group turned into like way more than they just kept accumulating.
There's probably like 30 people in this group by the end of the cruise, but they were this cruise family, and I loved the concept of how they were explaining they all met on a cruise and they take a cruise together every year, and there's lots of groups like these on cruise ships, and they were there with their friend who was in a wheelchair. And they were like, we don't know if this is going to be one of his last cruises or not, but, we're trying to make it a really, really good cruise for him. And this group of people, they were having a great time. They all had the drink package, and they were utilizing it to its full force.
Mind you, this is a 4-night cruise. So having a great time was based off of the first 48 hours, that we experienced them. This was like a quick interaction of saying they're having a great time because, well, they didn't have a great time after that.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, they always had a drink in their hand, but I think it was probably day 3 of the cruise, or maybe day 4. It was towards the end of the cruise when we were out at the pool deck with them, and something had happened because the temperature in the pool suddenly became very hot. They were all up in arms and super, super angry.
So it was very common for us to be in the pool at the same time as they were. And we had gotten out of the pool, gotten to the Red Frog Rum Bar and gotten a drink. And we were just waiting for our drink. We ordered our drinks and we were just sitting there. And all of a sudden, it felt like this dark cloud came over the Red Frog Rum Bar. It really felt like a dark and stormy night, all that happened without any rain clouds in the sky.
So, like I had said, they were with their friend that was in a wheelchair, and supposedly this person has cruised before, and it's very common that they have gone down water slides. They love water slides, and on the Carnival Conquest, they would not let him go down the water slide. And on his behalf, this group of 20, 30 people...
Oh, it was growing constantly.
Yeah, they were adding to their group every day, but they were upset.
Oh, it was a riot about to happen. It was a protest at the high seas. And this guy, by the way, to give you more clarity, had no functionality of his limbs. So the safety concern on our minds were like, that's valid. This person, although I want to always be someone that defends the rights and make sure no one's being discriminated against, this felt like one of those scenarios where I just was like, I don't want to get involved with this because this feels very, well, it made sense to me.
But these people were going around the pool deck trying to get people to stand with them. They were like, do you stand with us in the discrimination that's happening up here on the pool deck? And we were just like, we didn't really know what to say because, like Jared said, it felt like a very valid safety concern. But this carried on for like a good hour of the just like enraged mob of people that had gone from like the party group to the angry group within a matter of minutes. Unfortunately, they did not win.
They did not win. They talked to every security officer, every single pool attendant. And mind you, this whole group of people, including the person who was in the wheelchair, was in the pool. It's not like they wouldn't allow him into the pool. He was just not able to go down the water slide.
Yeah, I mean, I did feel bad because clearly he was super disappointed and they were so defeated. They had said that they would never, ever cruise Carnival again. And you know what? We've never run into this group of people ever again. So I don't know where they ended up or where they took their business. But I will never forget that day on the pool deck when that poor guy could not go down the water slide.
Oh, it was a dark and stormy day, like I said, without there being a single cloud in the sky.
Now, one thing that we would never talk about on YouTube, and we might share with discretion here on the podcast, is do you remember our final goodbye to that group?
No.
Okay, so we were at the Alchemy Bar, and this was the last night. We were saying our goodbyes. We told the group it was so nice to meet you. And that guy that was in the wheelchair, you don't remember him coming over to us?
Oh, yeah.
So he came over to us and he said, "Hey, it was so nice to meet you both." And this guy was a sweetheart. Super nice.
That's part of the reason why we had such a hard time joining the brigade.
But he came over to us and he actually kind of hit on us a little bit. He was like, "You guys are just such a nice couple." He was like, "I'm straight, but," and I'm like, if I had $1 for every time I heard where this was going, he was like, "I'm straight, but you're both so handsome."
Handsome? I just want to clarify. He said handsome, not hamsome.
Handsome. And I was like, "Oh, thank you very much." And he was like, No, seriously. And while he didn't really have movement in his arms, he was able to put his hands on both of our knees. And so he did lift both of his hands and put them on both of our knees. And he said, "I really, really hope that I see you both again." And we were like, oh, because it was some upper thigh touching all of a sudden at the Alchemy Bar. And you know what? I was flattered. I think we both were.
Oh, we both were flattered. And to be honest, that was one of those. I'm so glad you brought this up because that was probably the best goodbye we could have gotten off of the Carnival Conquest, because it really wrapped up our experience of a quite rocky ride and really put a nice bow on it.
Yeah. No, I mean, that group of people and that guy in particular, they were all super nice. And despite the little bit of drama on the pool deck, it was a nice group of people, I think, to have run into on a cruise. They were taking advantage of drinking all 15 drinks every single day. So I don't know if I almost ever didn't see a drink in their hands.
I was going to say the rowdy nature of this group was a lot to handle.
It was a lot. And we did distance ourselves from them at times just because, well, we had food poisoning and, we also were trying to cope with Jared's loss of not being at an all-inclusive resort that week. So overall, it was a very interesting cruise. What did you say, Jared, walking off of that ship?
I said, I will never cruise again.
He said he would never cruise again, and I was devastated. I was so sad because I loved cruising so much. I've always felt this connection to the ocean. I'm a Cancer, so I am a water sign, and I definitely have always just felt this connection to the water. And I love to swim, and I just love the water. So I was devastated.
And I'm a Libra. So I was just, kind of giving both ends of all-inclusive versus cruising and putting it on the scales and seeing which one made more sense, the pros and cons. And to me, the all-inclusive way outweighed in pros than the cons of the Carnival Conquest cruise we went on. But needless to say, that was not my last cruise.
No, it was not. We talked for weeks about what was better, all-inclusives or cruising. And I felt like it was a battle I was going to lose, but little did I know it was just the beginning.
That is it for episode 1. Obviously, there is an episode 2 coming, and that is my, rebound from the cruise that was supposed to be my last.
Rebound cruise. Yes, on next time we will be talking about Royal Caribbean's Independence of the Seas, Jared's second cruise. How did I get him on another cruise? You're going to have to tune in to find out, but that is it for today. Thank you all for joining in to the Cruise Diaries.
Yes, thank you for joining our first episode of the Cruise Diaries. I'm Jared.
And I am Jordan. Until next time, see ya.
See ya.